Welcome back to another episode of the Lighthouse Path podcast. I'm Stacey Hall, and it is always my delight to support you in raising and brightening your light so you can shine it on your audience because they're the ones in the dark looking for guidance, right? And for me, it's important that you are able to feel like the brilliant lighthouse you are so you can make more sales, enjoy more satisfaction, achieve more success, and leave a legacy that lives on long after you're gone. And in the studio today, I have a dear friend, Sara Troy. We met because I became a raving fan of hers, listening to her on a summit and said, that woman is somebody I'm supposed to know because she's a podcast host as well. 3,000 approximately episodes, all focused on helping the world to illuminate, like me. And in her way, she makes sure that people bring their stories to light because, as she shared with me, the reason she's committed to this is she's been through a rocky road through life herself, like most of us. In fact, I can't think of somebody who hasn't. And the stories of other people have helped her navigate along the way. They've illuminated her path, and she wants to help illuminate others. So you can see why we are very symbiotic, and she had to be in my studio. And yes, Sara has invited me into hers, so at some point you'll hear me talking about me on her show. And for here, this is Sara's opportunity to share with us what she has gleaned from all the stories she has heard and is able to retell for other people. So Sara, thank you so much. You're a best-selling author, a speaker, but more importantly for you, it's giving voice to other people. And how did that actually get started?
It was a redirect. I had invested in a quantum electric motor, lost all my money, and technology got stolen, and I was at a crossroads. And I wrote an article, and somebody saw it and said, "Oh, I love what you're writing. I love what you're doing. I would like you to join my podcast network." And I said, "What's a podcast?" This is back in 2012. I don't know how I found the money to do it, but I did, and I got hooked and listening to the stories I needed to hear to help me through my transition, and stories I knew that other people, it would illuminate their path along the way as well.
Well, 3,000 stories, but I bet that there's one or two that really stand out in your world, helped you significantly. Would you be willing to tell us one of those?
It's very hard to pick, one or two because there's so many that have touched my heart. But there is one that, because people may know her, it's a young girl called Keshi, and she's a burn victim. Excuse me. Her plane went down in Nigeria going home, and 65% of her body was burnt. And so she had to move to Texas. She's been through hundreds of operations. And I interviewed her through the courage and the strength and what helped her get up every day. And it was music, it was singing. And then one day I turned on America's Got Talent, and there she is. And, clearly disfigured. And people looking at her, not quite sure how to react. And then she opened her voice and sang and just lifted everybody's heart. As she went back to doing the champion show as well, I had her on with another burn victim who was a veteran. And people who listened to the show said they cried, not because they felt sorry for them, but because they were so enthralled by their courage and their strength to get up every day. And then I had her on again, and she always leaves me with something. And the one of the things she left me with this time, the only problem is the itching. I itch all the time. You know what it's like to have one itch. It can drive you mad. Imagine 65% of your body itching all the time, yet you still find the courage and the way to go through every day. So I think that's illumination in itself.
Yeah, and I'm dumbfounded. And you have so many stories from people who have been through some of the worst
Yes.
that life can throw at us and still live.
Yes.
And so, yes, if somebody wants a practice in gratitude, watching your podcast will definitely develop gratitude for, the grass isn't always greener. somewhere
Yeah.
else, but there is a way to be able to develop a green thumb.
Hmm.
So, Sara, here, many folks want to learn how to tell a story, their story,
Hmm.
to be able to make a difference, to get on podcasts. So I'm going to ask you two questions related to that. One is, what do you feel is the best way to tell one's story? Like, is there a format? Is there something that, because you can tell when these ladies touched hearts and made
Yeah.
a difference, improved someone's life by illuminating something. And then there's others that just tell a story.
Mm.
So having a front row seat to so many, what would you say is the key that makes a story, we're going to say, make a difference, illuminate for others?
Open honesty, vulnerability, truly coming from the heart. People say, who do I interview? And I say, those that come from the heart. It doesn't matter what the topic or the genre is. Is it coming from the heart? Can they be open and honest, even vulnerable? Have they stepped into their courage and their strength, discovered their abilities, and now wanting to share it with others? But when people feel it, it's not so much the words, it's the feeling behind the words that people connect to, that they resonate with. And when they truly feel a story, it then reflects back on their own. And I have a motto with my shows: listen, learn, and apply. Because there's always something you listen to that you learned that when you apply it can pivot your life in another direction as well.
I'm going to ask you to repeat that last part one more time. It was significantly brilliant and went by too fast.
Listen, learn, and apply. Because there's always something that you listen to that you've learned that when you apply it can pivot your life into clarity on your own path of illumination.
And as a podcast host, and also you put together compilation books, yes?
Yes,
Yes. All right.
yes,
So we're going to talk about both of these things. If somebody is considering being on podcasts, like they want to be a podcast guest in order to get their message out, which lots of entrepreneurs do, coaches,
yes.
consultants, and others. What do you think is, and normally I come at the positive, and I'm going to say, what do you think is one big mistake you have seen over and over again where maybe you didn't accept that guest right away and you gave them some guidance and maybe you brought them back later? Obviously, I'm not asking you to name names,
Mhm.
but what is a mistake that you have seen happen more than once that has to be nipped in the bud right from the start?
I am choosy who comes on because I want it to be people that I know that are really being earnest. If the people are in the rah rah and, kind of six figures, or the grandstanding, they're not there to have a conversation. They're not there to speak with people. It's all about what they're doing in the big grandstanding. That's not my platform. I want people to honestly connect. And I've had people on like that in the past. I don't anymore because I know how to filter them out. But people don't want that. You're not on a stage talking to an auditorium. You're having an intimate conversation, and people want to feel that connection and that intimacy. So if you have something that you're excited about, you want to promote, and you do, bring it down. Come from the heart. Be honest. Why is it so important to you? Let people feel that connection. We're not into the sugar high or the big flash or, you know, um, the next best thing. People are so over that. They just want to know, why is it so important to you? How will it make a difference in my life? And they want to know they can believe it.
Beautifully said. I agree. Just letting that be and sinking in for folks, because, yeah, there was a time when you had to impress a podcast host.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's not about impressing any podcast host. It's about touching the heart of the
Yes.
podcast host and knowing what their show is about, and being a contribution to them and their listeners.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I agree with you. Comp, And you do compilation books. What made you decide to branch out into that? And why do you feel that's a value add for people who want to tell their story or for people who want to receive stories? Why not just leave it at podcasting?
Um, my brother's an author and I love reading and I love learning. And I felt that the books kind of complemented the podcast and the podcast complemented the book. So, whichever way people came at it, from the podcast to the book, book to the podcast, it extends the story. It extends um, what is so important. And maybe they can go into details in a chapter that they can't, in a podcast. It's their words, their point of view. And so, the second book I did is Our Forgotten Children. And this is 15 authors contributing around the raising of our children and the system that is not serving them. And this comes from each person's professional point of view or experience and what they're doing about it. And I think that's invaluable because it's coming from the front line, so to speak, the people that are there in it and being advocates for children and families, which we need to see a great deal more of. So, that was my second book. First book was Discover Yourself, which is just an ebook. Everything has a podcast to go along with the book. And of course, the next one I'm gathering offers for is Our Forgotten Seniors.
Would you say more about that? Our
Yes.
forgotten seniors.
I'm a senior, right? So I know what, having interviewed so many people in the 55 plus, it's that you've got nectar here. You've got wisdom that's been learned from the hard knocks of life, from the experience of life, the skills and the tools that people have learned along the way. And we should be celebrating that. We should look at what their contribution has been. But as a senior, what are they facing? Is it financial strain, health? Is it societal? Is it family? Um, Everybody has a challenge as they get older, but also a warning to the youth to start looking and preparing for your seniorship now. Because if you don't, would you be able to afford to be a senior? But also bringing that respect of that wisdom from our elders to the youth. You've got the enthusiasm and the energy, youth. How about you take a touch of our wisdom and take that with you and just see how far you can go from with that?
Yeah. And being a senior as well, I understand, and I'd say a good portion of the Lighthouse Path podcast are seniors. And yeah, the world has changed for us. The good news is we can stay healthier
Yeah.
longer, we can stay vibrant longer, which means we have more wisdom than we've ever had before. And
Yes.
I do believe that it's being valued because we value it. It's
Yes.
being valued by others more than it ever has in
Absolutely.
any other
Mm.
era of the world. So I'm thrilled that you are shining a light. And folks, by the time you watch this, it's very possible that book is already out. But I'm going to encourage you to go to the website that is scrolling here for Sara's website, to be able to access what is already in the can, as they say, the podcast episodes and the books, but also to find out what she's got cooking next. And Sara, I'm going to pay you a very high compliment in my world. I I have always admired Louise L. Hay. And
Yes.
for a
Oh,
period of
yeah.
time, yeah. So for a period of time, I was doing my best to emulate her. I also produced a couple of compilation books. I've written books, doing the podcast. And it takes a lot of energy. But Louise got started in her mid 60s.
I know.
I know you know. I'm
Mhm.
just letting others know, which is why I'm saying I'm paying you a compliment because I wanted to step into her shoes. I
Mm.
don't have to. I believe you have.
Oh
I
my
believe
goodness.
that's exactly what you're doing is you are emulating Louise L. Hay and showing what's possible and that we don't have to stop
No,
right after a certain age.
no.
But more than that, you are now doing what she did, which is giving voice to people. So many of
Mm.
the experts in the world would never be known if she hadn't given them a voice. And
Right.
that's what you're doing for so many.
Yes. Oh, thank you. That is such a compliment to me because I do revere her. And when I read her book, it was, yes, this is who, if I had to emulate anyone, And it would be what she was doing and why she was doing it. And, we each do it in our own way, but there's always somebody that is that beacon of light that she shone a path for me to take.
Yes, and me as well, and so many. So I let's if you didn't believe that I admire you, I'm saying I admire her so much, and I see that in you. So
Thank you.
I would love it if you would share in your own words when someone goes to your website, what are they going to discover? What did you put there for us?
Um, and I do everything myself, so I wear all the hats. So you're not going to see kind of a fancy latest website. What you're going to see is one that's just grown over 13 years, because it's my 13th anniversary in last June, and it's bought with a labor of love. So you see a lot of color. And if you go to where it says podcast tag and you look down at all of those banners, those are all the genres. So you can choose the topic you want to listen to. What one do you need to hear? There's probably two or three or four or 500 under each genre. But look at it as a library. Be willing to cruise through it like a library. What one stands out to you? Because I promise you, that's the one you need to listen to right now. And remember, they're an hour plus shows, except for mine, which are generally around half an hour. And when you truly listen, I promise you'll learn. And there's always a takeaway. There's always something that you can apply. But the podcast tag will give you all the genres. But on the front page, if you're looking at it on a site, you'll see all the shows, current shows will be on the right-hand side. Do come and listen, because I promise you, there's somebody here that's going to shed a light on something that you didn't even know you needed to see.
Well, packed with value is what I'm going to say. And all you have to do is go to the website and it's all there waiting for you. Sara, with as much as you have on your plate, I'm going to say thank you for carving out time to tell your story as to why it's important that you are telling other people's stories. And for those of us watching you and this podcast, I want to say to my friends out there who are doing their best to be lighthouses, watch some of Sara's interviews. See how she helps pull people's stories out from them. And then use that as the inspiration, the catalyst, the illumination for being able to tell your story in a way that can definitely make a difference for others and guide them out of their darkness to your path.
Mhm.
So, Sara, thank you for being in the studio and sharing this guidance for us.
Thank you very much.
All right, everyone. Till the next episode, as you know, I always say, shine on.